hope you're doing amazing. Welcome back to Spooks with Ams. So today I have another treat for you guys. So I have worked with a few other redditors to be able to read their scary stories. So I will be linking all of their usernames below. Yeah, I'm excited, guys. Let's get into it. The first story is going to be by Clung J. And this is from a creepypasta. This is called If You Find a Thomas the Tank Engine episode called Sir Topham's Hat Day Off, Don't Watch It. My whole life, I've been a Thomas the Tank Engine fan. Even as I got older, I still loved watching the episodes and playing with my engines. People at school and my family always made fun of me for being Thomas's fan at 12 years old, but I didn't care. I loved Thomas the Tank Engine. My father hated that I still loved Thomas. He always told me to grow up and quit being a baby. He tried getting me into sports like basketball or football, but I didn't care for them. All I cared about was watching Thomas and playing with all my toy engines. My mom was the only one who supported my love for Thomas. Shout out to moms, right? They're always so non-judgmental and amazing. But anyway, she always would get me the new toy engines on my birthday, and she would always buy me new episodes when I ran out. My parents would always fight about my obsession for Thomas. I would hear them outside my room at night arguing. Dang it, Jess, he is almost 13 years old. He needs to grow up, my father would say. Stop it, Dave. He loves a kid's show, so what? Instead of making fun of him and bullying him, you should support him and love him, my mother said. I love your mom. Just saying, I love your mom. They argued a lot back then. Every time they argued, I would cry, knowing their problems were caused by me. I tried to get into other things. My parents bought me a PlayStation. I tried playing Fortnite, Call of Duty, Halo, but I just didn't enjoy playing them. All I ever truly enjoyed were Thomas episodes and my toy trains. Nothing else. One day when I got back to school, I decided to watch an episode. I went into my closet where I kept all my DVDs of Thomas. As I looked around for a new episode to watch, something caught my eye. It was an old VHS tape tucked away in the back of the closet. I reached over and grabbed it, staring at the title scribbled on a piece of tape that read, Sir Topham's Hat Day Off. That's strange, I say aloud to no one. I looked around at the rest of the closet, which was full of DVDs, but no VHS tapes. I didn't have a VHS player in the living room, but I knew my parents had one in their room, so I headed upstairs where I am greeted by my father at the top. What have you got there, son? He asked, pointing to the tape. Oh, just an old movie, I lie. He snatched the tape before I could react. He looked at it slowly, then asked, Is this a Thomas episode? Yes, I said, knowing I couldn't lie. My father stared at me long and hard. He looked into a way a father looks at his son who failed a test, or the way a father disapproved of something. He handed me the VHS tape back and said, Son, do you have any friends? I paused and lied, saying, Yeah, of course I do. Don't lie to me. I'm your father. I can tell when you're lying. I hang my head down low in shame. Tears slowly form in my eyes. Poor kid. Seriously, poor guy. Son, until you get over the stupid obsession, no one is going to want to be your friend. I just want you to be happy, son. That's all he said. Crying now, I can barely get out. Okay. He handed me the tape and walked downstairs slowly. I cried for a good minute on top of the stairs. I wish my father was proud of me, but I knew all he saw in me was a big baby, a failure of a son. After I wipe the tears away and head into my parents' room, this will be my final episode, I think to myself. My parents have a big room with white walls painted with flowers, with the carpet a silky golden color, and their bed is huge with red covers. The real prize, though, is the flat screen TV. It was a newer model that stretched almost the whole length of the wall. I spot the VHS player under the TV. I walked over to it. I put the tape in. I grabbed the remote, which is sitting on the desk drawer near the bed, and I turned the TV on. The screen is white before the movie starts to play. The episode started out with no theme song or narration. Just Sir Topham Hatt sitting in his office writing in his journal. He wrote for a good 5 minutes before he put his pen down and looked outside the window to his office. The trains were busy as usual, carrying loads of coal up or picking up passengers from the station. Sir Topham Hatt just stared at them silently with a frown on his face. He then walked over to his desk and began writing again. The video then cut to Thomas at the Knapford station, waiting to pick up passengers. Thomas has this weird look on his face. His face is scrunched up in almost painful way. His eyes are a dark red now instead of black. He picked up the passengers and started to drive. He still had that painful look on his face as he drove, like if you accidentally bumped your head into a wall. There is still no narrator, so the only thing you can hear was the sound of Thomas chugging along the tracks. Thomas dropped the passengers off at the next station and started to head back to the Tidmouth sheds. For those of those that aren't acquainted with Thomas the Tank Engine, that's where he and the other trains lived and slept. Once he got back, the sky turned a reddish-yellow color like the color of fire. He then headed over to his shed, and after getting inside, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. The video showed all the trains sleeping peacefully now. The only thing that could be heard was the sound of the crickets chirping and the wind blowing. Then the video suddenly cut back to Sir Topham Hatt crying now. He was holding something in his hands that I couldn't see. He cried so loud and hard you'd think that someone he loved had died. He cried in a way that you can see a shadow shaking in the light. He then stopped suddenly frozen in place. Then he slowly turned to the camera, and to my horror, his eyes were now bloodshot red, and he had an abnormally wide smile on his face with a gun in his hand. Oh boy. He walked out his office and headed to the sheds where the trains were sleeping. He opened the gate for Thomas's shed and walked. Hey guys, I'm so sorry about that cutout. Anyway, we're gonna continue. So he walked in the gate for Thomas's shed and walked inside. He stared at Thomas with his wide eyes for a good minute. Then to my horror, he slowly raised the gun and shot Thomas in the head. Wow. Thomas's eyes were as white as blood started to pour out from his head. The trains were wide awake now from the gunshot. They started to panic as Sir Topham Hatt walked out of Thomas's shed, gun in hand. He walked over to Percy's shed and shot her in the head, and then did the same with James, Henry, Gordon, and everyone else. I am frozen with fear now. I could feel goosebumps all over me, and I tried to close my eyes, but I couldn't, as they were glued to the TV. The image of the dead trains would haunt me long after that day. Nightmares would haunt my sleep for so long. The video now pans to each train, all with white eyes and a huge hole in their head, blood spilling out. Sir Topham's Hatt grin is now so wide, it looks as if his gums were going to snap. Wow. He turned to the camera now, staring right at me. It felt as if he was staring into my soul, with blood all over his jacket and smile. In face, smiling like it was his birthday. He then slowly raised the gun to his head, and I closed my eyes. I heard a loud bang from the TV. I didn't open my eyes for a good minute or two, and when I did, the TV was blank. I sit unable to move, petrified with fear. Somehow I break out this trance. I run over and grab the VHS tape out of the player, turning off the TV. In the process, I ran downstairs and threw the VHS tape into the garbage. I then ran back upstairs into my room and froze. I saw all my trains and posters of Thomas in the room, and the sight of them made me reach my breaking point. I screamed as I ripped off all the posters and started throwing my trains against the wall. My parents came rushing in and tried to calm me down, but I couldn't. I was overwhelmed and terrified. The image of Thomas and everyone was burnt into my head, and worst of all, it was the image of Sir Topham Hatt and his wide, bloody smile. It's been 2 years since I saw that tape. My parents hired a therapist to try and help me cope with what I saw. It didn't help. I was mentally broken at that point. I would have had nightmares of Sir Topham Hatt and the dead bodies of the trains every night, and I would wake in a hot sweat screaming after each one. As time went on, though, I started to forget about the tape slowly. My therapist gave me a trick for when I would think about the tape. She gave me a small red stress ball. But I know, real cheesy, but it did help. Every time I would think about the tape and the images, I would just squish the ball, and somehow that made me forget about them. Today was my last appointment with my therapist. How are you feeling, Greg? She said after we sat down in her office. Good, I said. It's been 2 years now since the incident happened. Do you think you've recovered from it fully? I think so. I haven't had any nightmares recently or thought about the images, I said. Good. Well then, I'll make this session short by giving you a little test to see if you truly have recovered. She opened up her bag and pulled out a Thomas the Tank Engine toy. At first I started to panic, sweating profusely and squishing my stress ball faster. And faster the memories started to come back. It's okay, Greg, just breathe. I started to calm my breathing. I closed my eyes and opened them, and I stared at the Thomas toy. She handed it to me slowly, and I inspected it. It looked like the old one I had before I threw it away, with the rest of my trains, DVDs, and anything else I had to do with Thomas. Now, I felt nothing when I looked at the train. I just saw a toy, nothing else. I handed the toy back as she said, Good, you've passed the final test. I think you're all good to go, she said as she stood up. Thanks for helping me, Dr. Slayer, I said as I started to walk out. Of course, Greg. I'll miss having you as a patient, she said as I walked out. Walked out of her office and outside where my mom picked me up. So we drove home. I turned on the radio, which broadcasted to a story that I turned up to listen to. Breaking news in the area, and a 10-year-old girl has been found in her house. It says, then continues, the child was found in her parents' bedroom where she shot herself with her father's gun that they kept in a drawer near the TV. When the parents found her near it, the TV was blank, and when expected, there was a tape inside. The tape contained a Thomas the Tank Engine episode called Sir Topham Hatt's Day Off. Local authorities have declared the death a suicide, and my mom then quickly shut off the radio, then turned and said, Honey, are you okay? I couldn't speak or move. The images now and the tape all came flying back to me. I squished my ball harder and faster than I ever had before, and it didn't help. The dead trains, the blood, the smile, all came rushing back to me as I just let out a loud scream in the car. As soon as I got home, I ran up to my room and went into my computer, where I am typing this now. This is not a joke. Do not try to find the tape or watch it. It's not worth it. Somehow I got lucky that day. The girl who watched it didn't. I write this also as a warning to parents. If your kids are Thomas the Tank Engine fans, be careful what you buy. Always check the DVDs. If a child sees the tape, well, I think we know what will happen. Please, I beg all of you parents, people, or anyone, if you find a Sir Thomas the Tank Engine episode called Sir Topham's Hat Day Off, don't watch it. Wow, what an incredible story. I would love to hear your guys' feedback in the comments below. And seriously, Klung J, if you are watching this video, thank you so much for that treat. That is such a good and creative story. Alright guys, so we're going to move on to the next video. This one is My Attic Monster by Thatsquiteastretch. Drip, drip. I'm sure I turned the tap off. Did I? I live alone, so I must have forgotten to turn it off. How silly. Of course I forgot to turn it off. Drip, drip. It's a simple mistake which anyone can make, a minor inconvenience at most. Ignore it. There's no reason to get worked up over something as childish as this. I'm sure that's a conclusion you'd come up to. As well, have you noticed the drip, drip of the bathroom tap? It makes the most sense. To think anything else would be absurd. But of course, noticing that drip, 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 as a child, you would have thought it was a monster under your bed. How ridiculous. We all know monsters live in the attic. Where else would they hide? The heart of my house is the attic. They avoid it at all costs, and so should you. But I'm not scared, I'm not. Only a child would be scared of such a thing. But no, we're just forgetful. We are, I think, very forgetful. The next logical step is to turn the tap off. Let's not be wasteful after all. So I do. So would anyone. Slowly. I'm not scared. I just don't want to hurry. A few hours pass. Something feels off. Feels wrong. Drip. Drip. I swear I turned the tap off. You start to question yourself. Did you actually turn it off? Did I? Or did we just tell ourselves We would. We must have. How else would I still be hearing that drip, drip? So I get up slowly and turn it off again. The bathroom feels colder, like someone left a window open. Oh, of course. That must have been me. Who else would it be? Someone who likes the fresh, icy, morning winter air, it would seem. Cold. I close the window. So cold. I shiver. A jolt of electricity runs down my body. I'm not scared. Am I? Of course not. No, it's just the cold. Only a child would be scared. I turned around, leaving. Colder? Again? The window is open. Drip. Drip. Again? The tap is on. Denial. Denial. We're all so childish. I don't think I'm alone. I know no one else is here, but still something that likes the steady, soothing, repetitive sound of the tap. Drip. Drip. Something that likes the cold, harsh breath of winter breathing down its neck. Cold. Maybe I am scared, terrified state. I stare up at the attic door, frozen. A stale, putrid smell drifts from the cracks behind the entrance. The attic and bathroom fill with the stench, begging to be released to the rest of the house. It's not even my job to stop it. I only live here. I don't bother it. It doesn't devour me. But today, it was awoken. The bathroom has been claimed. It's no longer yours or mine. The attic monster owns it now. We're all just children after all. We should be scared. That one's awesome. These short stories that are made by these Redditors are so creative. Something so short can be so scary still. So yeah, an amazing story. That's quite a stretch. Thank you for that treat. Now guys, we're gonna go on to the last story, number 3. This one is called The Doll Maker by Chronic95. Thank you so much for this treat, by the way, Chronic. I really love this one. Frank applied the finishing touches to his newest creation. She was his masterpiece. A doll he had carved by hand out of wood and painted with absolute care and devotion. She is perfect, Frank said with clear excitement in his tone. Her eyes were painted sky blue and her cheeks were slightly shaded pink. The sunlight creeping in through the window illuminated her red hair with a glow that enveloped Frank with its aura of beauty. I shall name you Wendy. Frank grabbed the dress and he had hand stitched for Wendy and proceeded to put it on her. The blue color of the dress matched her eyes perfectly, and the pink stripes complemented her cheeks. As soon as Frank had finished putting the dress on Wendy, he placed her back on the workbench. You truly are a work of art, he said proudly. As Frank was putting away his tools and paint, he noticed that Wendy was no longer on his workbench. What the heck? He said with confusion. He looked all around his workshop, but could not find her. Frank jumped as he heard what sounded like tiny footsteps, seeming to circulate the entire workshop. Then came a faint giggle from behind him. He turned around and saw nothing there. This isn't funny. Show yourself, he shouted with pure frustration and fear. Answering the call, Wendy whispered from behind him, Boo! She appeared in front of Frank. Frank fell back with fright and hit his hand on the workbench. You're alive? His breathing had become heavy and his heart was beating fast. Wendy tiptoed towards Frank as he lay on the floor with blood coming from the back of his head. You look frightened, Frank. Don't be scared. I'm going to make you pretty like me, Wendy said with her high-pitched voice. Frank's vision was starting to go. Wendy grabbed his toolkit and tiptoed back over to him. You are going to be a work of art, Frank, she said cheerfully. Frank saw the knife in her hand as his vision faded to darkness. Woo! I love that one. That one was so good. So good. So good. Thank you so much, Chronic. Alright guys, that's going to conclude this video. thank you again so much to all the Redditors who have given me permission to read these stories. I absolutely love this. Guys, even if you're not a Redditor, if you're just a normal subscriber and if you have any paranormal stories or if you create stories, please send them to me. I would absolutely love to be able to be a part of these adventures with you guys. All right, you guys, and that's my groceries. On that note, I will see y'all later. Bye!